I'm Danny Otto. Welcome into an all-new episode of That Recap Show. Now, before we get into the episode, just wanted to issue major spoiler alert. We are going to be going over everything that happened in episode 3 of Marvel's Secret Invasion. So if you haven't seen that episode yet, you may want to pause this video, head over to Disney Plus, check that out, and then come back and enjoy the breakdown. Now, with that out of the way, let's start the show.
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.
All right, joining with me to break down everything from episode 3 of Marvel's Secret Invasion, it's Jon Rico.
What's up?
Hey, we didn't think of a code word. Damn it.
Oh, dang it.
All right, we'll do it next week.
Can't trust you anyway.
I know. We'll just talk about the episode either way. Just don't take anything that I say for real.
Yeah.
Anyway, episode 3. We were talking about this before we even started recording. A lot happened. So like I feel like the runtime is still similar to the first 2 episodes, but it felt like a lot quicker just because we had a lot of plates spinning, I think, in this episode. And I mean, the main thing that I keep bringing up is tense. And I feel like we got that amplified in this episode. Like there were multiple scenes that I was just like, I don't know what's like, if they're going to make it out. I don't know if they're going to get the abort code. I don't know if this person's going to like, you know what I mean? Like it was just like super tense and multiple situations that were super tense. We finally got the scene where Talos grabs Gravik and then all of the scrolls behind him turn into Gravik. I was wondering when that one was going to come up, and we finally got it. And I thought it was perfect because it just means like everybody here is watching, type of thing. Right. And I thought that was a pretty cool scene. The one thing that I had to bring up because it just made me immediately think of it is when Fury was talking to his wife about like she was saying like, what's up now? And he said that he's retiring. And she said, what are you going to do in your downtime? And he goes, I'm thinking revenge. And he said it very calm and everything, but it just made me think of a scene from the TV series Archer.
Rampage!
Where he kind of goes on a rampage, revenge, like warpath type of thing. And I know Archer says it very like more animated, but Fury in his head, I felt like the how calmly he said it just means like in amplified on how crazy his revenge is going to be. So I'm really excited to kind of see, Fury on this revenge warpath type of thing. But yeah, I could go on and on. Before I go too long, because there's a lot of stuff I want to talk about and takeaways and predictions and stuff like that. But Rico, what were some of your like initial thoughts from episode 3?
Yeah, I thought this was a pretty solid episode. Again, like you said, there's quite a few things that happen within this episode, but it also happens at a really fast pace. But one of the things I enjoyed about this episode is that we're starting to see people call out Fury on like his actions over the last few years, especially before. Not even just before the blip, but especially after the blip.
Yeah.
Obviously his wife Vara kind of giving him like, I grieved you. I did all that stuff for 5 years, and then you came back and left again, doing talking all this stuff, and like kind of throwing the logical stuff back in his face, and they have a really good back and forth. Where he kind of like throws like that. Who do you trust? Like the same thing. Like we don't know who to trust in the show, right? Like he's even doing it with his own wife. So you're kind of starting to see how the personal side of this mission for Fury is starting to take a toll on him, not just in the professional world, but also like in his own personal life. So that's been a very interesting thing to watch unfold throughout the show. But yeah, I think just the overall pacing of the storytelling of the show has been really solid. Each episode leads directly into the next one, and there's not a lot of filler scenes out there, although for this episode I will say that the ending did just kind of feel like it just happened. We get that the scene with Vara at the end that I'll talk about a little bit later, but I feel like we're like about to get more from the scene, and all of a sudden we cut to black and it's like, okay, get ready for next week. And I was like, okay, that was like probably one of the more jarring things that's happened so far is like pacing, but overall the writing has been fun, the acting has been really solid, and yeah, I'm looking forward to see what each week brings out of the show.
Yeah, definitely. Me too. I feel like we got 2 cliffhanger endings. Like they couldn't decide like if they were
Yeah.
going to end on one. So we get the Gaia cliffhanger ending, and then we immediately get Nick Fury's wife cliffhanger ending with her phone calls. Like it's just
Right.
like back to back, 2 scenes, one right after the other, and then over. Like
Mhm.
type of thing. It wasn't even a resolve scene. It was literally one cliffhanger and then another cliffhanger, and then that's it.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it was jarring is probably the word I would say, but it was just kind of like, oh, okay, it's over. On to next week.
but also we got the reference to nobody calls Fury Nick.
Yes, yeah, yeah. I got some thoughts on that.
Yeah, that I mean, I feel like that maybe that's their code. Maybe that's like how Fury is get. Because remember I was saying last week, like I feel like Nick Fury has like this. He can't outright say like this is definitely a scroll and this is definitely a human. But I feel like maybe that's like maybe one of his ways of kind of immediately perceiving how somebody he's known for a while, how they start kind of interacting with him and like what kind of, I guess, lingo they start
Like in
using.
Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, we saw it with Talos. So the fact that when he was impersonating his boss, he was like, "Wait, you called me Nicholas, or you called me Nick, or something like that." And then he's like, so we already know that's kind of like Fury's little tell if he's not around someone that he usually trusts. And
Right.
so yeah, I definitely got some deeper thoughts on that a little bit later.
Cool. You want to get to some big takeaways?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. All right. I'm going to kick us off with big takeaways with I'm surprised. I am not surprised. I think this is the perfect series that we're going to get multiple of these, but for the second week in a row, boom, big reveal. We were talking about, maybe this is going to be last episode. We were talking about this. Maybe this is going to be kind of the origin story of how the MCU Super Scrolls, come into being, basically. And we saw kind of the DNA that they were trying to gather, and we saw the machine, and we saw scientists talking about it and stuff like that. And so we were like, maybe one of the later episodes we'll see them trying it, and Gravik is the first to volunteer or something like that. But no, we find out Gravik already is a Super Scroll. They've already used the machine. It's successful. And it comes from the scene exactly like I was talking about, the one with Talos and Gravik, where he grabs him and all of the other scrolls turn into Gravik. But we have Talos stab him in the hand, and he just kind of rips through the knife, and his hand heals from the extremis DNA type of thing. So it's going to be interesting. I'm wondering if he has all of the powers already, or if it's going to be like, multiple times in the machine type of thing, or, because we haven't seen him use anything yet. Like that's literally the first snapshot we've ever had of Gravik using like any kind of power. So I'm wondering if it's like if it's all at once, or if it's like a multiple thing type of thing.
Yeah, and we know there's this harvest that we're still
Right.
waiting to learn what that is too, that they're like going out and looking for. So
Right.
that's still part of it, I think.
The other thing I didn't connect until now, the machines that all of the real humans are hooked up to in the compound, that all of the different
Fracking pods.
Yeah. I completely didn't connect that it was the same thing that Captain Marvel was hooked up
Oh,
to
yeah.
in that movie, because until we had Gaia going through all the memories and stuff like that, trying to get the abort codes type of thing. Like I just thought maybe it was like they just put them under type of thing, so they could never, wake up or you know what I mean? Like I just thought it was like suspended animation.
Right.
Like
I think it was a little more fresh, having watched Captain Marvel a few weeks ago, like right before it came out. I think because I remember that same thing, and that's how she was having the conversations with the Annette Bening character, the Supreme Intelligence. So I'm also thinking like these people are all in like their own little world, having conversations with somebody in their own life like that. So it's just like, yeah, it's a cool way to tie in stuff that was introduced in that movie and keep it relevant in the MCU going forward, for sure.
Also, yeah, I mean, also just like we got last episode, we got a flashback again, and that's kind of also helping like bridge some gaps in the early stages, I guess, of the scrolls being on Earth and stuff like that. But the other thing I had to mention, I've already mentioned this. I think I mentioned it. It was either for the first episode or the second. I'm pretty sure it was definitely one of them. But I'm really enjoying just Fury and Talos's relationship.
Can I ask you for help?
Oh, well, what, are you here to have an English breakfast, mate? Or are you here to inquire after my well-being?
I keep saying it's like a buddy cop thing. We were talking like maybe it was like Lethal Weapon type of thing. But I love their relationship. Like their scenes together are like my favorite. Like my favorite scene so far has been the dog poop where they're driving in the car and they're talking about like Talos is like, I don't understand humans and dogs, and Fury's like, yeah, it's man's best friend because there is no other species that cleans up poop of another species. So I like scenes like that. I really enjoy, and it just shows like the relationship that Fury and Talos have, and it even spills over into like those really like suspenseful like scenes like where they're trying to get the abort code and everything, and they're doing the interrogation, and they're still like doing little jabs and still like acting like the same relationship. Like I just really enjoy their whole dynamic together and everything, and just being able to start like seeing how like it's not just they go, oh yeah, hey, remember they met each other like 30 years ago in Captain Marvel. Like, no, it's really they have this developed relationship, and we're really getting to see that. And I really think it shows how much thought went into the writing of the relationship between these two. Like to have that and to be able to show the development on like that kind of level type of thing. And it's something I really enjoy. It's something I look forward to. Like I loved all of those scenes in this episode and stuff like that. So, but Rico, what were some of your big takeaways from episode 3?
Yeah, I'm a big Ben Mendelsohn fan, especially going back to Rogue One. Of course, he played director critic, but he's been quite a few movies that I really enjoy. Mississippi Grind's another one that people should check out with Ryan Reynolds. I think he's also in that with. But yeah, seeing those two kind of play off each other, they're both great actors, and so when you get to see like again, I was saying this a couple weeks ago as well, when this show is doing a really good job of just pairing off great actors and just letting them kind of like chew the scenery themselves. And of course, when you get that with Sam Jackson leading his own show in the MCU, it's all pretty much all you're going to get, which is great. But yeah, okay. So I want to talk about the end of the episode here, where we get the stuff that transpires with the abort code, and all that stuff happens with Gravik and Gaia. But then we cut off of that scene into Vara, who is she's taking a little trip. She goes into like a safety deposit box and grabs a gun. Don't know why. And then she gets on the call, and I want to talk to Gravik, and you hear the voice on the other line even says just man on the phone on the captions. Like they don't tell you who it is. You're just like, well, you're talking to me now. And then that was just kind of like it. Like I said, the episode just ends right off of that. And you're just like, what the like why? And so I had to rewatch the scene after I saw a couple of things online saying this. So when I heard that voice, I was like, you know who that sounds like? That sounds like Rhodey. And I was like, that's a very interesting development there, because you got Rhodey talking to Vara, who is Fury's wife, but not just Fury's wife, Fury's skrull wife. And obviously, you were calling this a couple of weeks ago, but the possibility of Rhodey being a skrull just keeps getting more and more possible, and it just seems more and more likely now, in my opinion. And we were talking about the code words and stuff like that. If you remember that scene last week, he refers to Fury as Nick, and that was I was like, I think that's when Fury kind of probably started putting the pieces together on his own. And, that's why he's like, hey, when I'm out, I'm still in, because he now knows this fight's even bigger than he probably anticipated it being. So I think really the question lies is that when did the Skrulls take Rhodey and infiltrate that part of the world, the government, right? I feel like there's a couple different times where you could have within the MCU timeline, but I feel like it had to have happened sometime after Endgame, because if you take away the fact that the real Rhodey wasn't there when Tony died, I think the Umos kind of take out some of that moment there. So I think you need to find. We're getting a lot of flashbacks in here, so we might get a flashback to maybe what happened when Rhodey got taken by the Skrulls at some point. So I think that as abrupt as the ending was, it leaves you with a lot of questions going forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting to think about, potentially when, because I mean, we know that there's going to be reveals still of people, because I mean, they've been pretty open about like there's going to be a reveal of someone who has been in the MCU for a long time, and we're all assuming it's like most people are assuming it's Rhodey. There's a couple other people that you could point to. One person even said, "What if it was Happy Hogan?" Which just on a Tom Holland Spider-Man level would be like heartbreaking for him. But yeah, I mean, it's really interesting to speculate like when we get those reveals, like who or when was it? And I I want to think that maybe it was during the blip, and because I understand what you're saying, but we did get that, or they were talking about one of the reveals is going to hit hard, and so I think by exactly what you said, it would hit really hard if the real Rhodey woke up at the end of the series and had no idea what Tony did.
True.
Type of thing. Like
I can see
that
yeah.
would be a really big emotional hit. And that might drive, because we know that Armor Wars is taking place after Secret Invasion and is going to deal with some of the fallout from whatever happens in Secret Invasion. So what if that is like a main catalyst for the real Rhodey when he finally wakes up and finds out what Tony actually did? Like some of Tony's tech is still out there and all of this stuff. And he's like, I'm doing this for him because I wasn't even there when he did all of that for me and everyone, type of thing. Like that would be a huge like emotional thing. And I think it might be something that would really drive him in Armor Wars, which is now elevated to a movie, not a series. So like it could be. I really think like maybe it was during the blip, type of thing.
Yeah, very well could be.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think it's really cool and interesting to speculate not only who could be a skrull, but when, type of thing. I think
exactly. I think that's also the key part of it, because you could tie it into past events. It just again adds to the layers of the depth of the MCU, but it's also like, okay, all this was done under the guise of like, impersonating a hero. So it's like it's very interesting to think about.
Yeah. And just like you were saying, like I did not even think about that being Rhodey's voice, but yeah, I mean if that's true, I cannot wait.
Definitely sounded like Don Cheadle when the second time I heard like, oh yep, I'm hearing it. That sounds interesting.
I'm gonna have to go back and listen to that end scene, and yeah, I can't wait for next week's episode then. But anyway, you get to some predictions?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, why don't you kick us off with predictions?
Okay, so let's talk about this scene between Gravik and Gaia here at the end of the episode. Well, really, their arc throughout the whole episode is very interesting because obviously we're seeing that Gravik has his eye on Gaia, and clearly the back and forth between them, especially at the beginning when they talk about, hey, Brogan didn't know where our safe house was, and she had to kind of play off that lie, and she even tells him right to his face, I'm really good at lying to people. So it's just like, oh, I'm pretty sure he took that into account as well.
Yeah.
And so of course when everything happens and Gravik is right on his suspicions at the end of the day, like she is helping out Talos, especially in regards to the abort code. She's able to get in there really quick, and she even takes out two of their own guys doing it. And so we're left with what's pretty cool is that Gravik obviously was one step ahead of her and met her as she was trying to escape, but he didn't even let her finish talking. He's like, are you a leader of the scroll? And then boom, he just takes her out right there.
Yeah.
But then they do an interesting thing where as he's heading back to like the compound, they kind of linger on the shot a little bit, and I was almost expecting her to like get up like, oh gosh, like that was like, it wasn't like a fatal blow or something like that. And then of course it cut to the scene with Vara right after. I was like this just kind of left you, like, you left me there for like 1 second so long that I didn't know what was going to happen there for a second. But yeah, like they get and give you this implication that she could be dead, because she does refer back to her skrull form. You see her at the body, the bloodshot and everything. But I really hope this is not the end of Gaia's story, and I feel like I've seen clips in the trailer of that possibly already being the case. But also Emilia Clarke is a pretty big name actress, so I feel like if you just cut her off midway through the story when you just introduced her into the MCU, it would just be like, come on, man, don't Daenerys Targaryen her again. But I'm very interested because we're learning a lot more. We heard the word super scroll said in this episode finally, like he just flat out says it. And we know, of course, that he has at least the extremis powers. But I'm curious if like her needing to use the machine again is obviously going to help save her, possibly because the extremis could help heal the gunshot wound. But also like if this is their way of kind of like twisting it a little bit, instead of us thinking that Gravik will be the first one that's full super scroll, maybe it'll be Gaia in some form, and we'll have like these two scrolls who are, one's fully powered, one's kind of like not fully powered yet, going up against each other, and then that could lead into her possibly being like a bigger character going forward, because the super scroll of course is famously tied to the Fantastic Four. And funny enough, people mention that the powers that they are harvesting are like pretty similar to that
Right.
of the Fantastic Four.
Right.
So I think it's a pretty good way that we can get some nice gateway material into that movie that will be coming out in a couple years now. So the future is looking pretty awesome for like scrolls and of course setting up the Fantastic Four and setting up all these bigger things within the MCU.
Yeah, and what's really cool is I think they're not doing it like in your face, like, worry about this later. Like, here's a tease. Like, they're not
Yeah, no,
doing that, but they're kind of just laying like little things here and there, and they're like, that might pay off later.
Mhm.
Just so you know. Like, they're not like just in your face. Like,
Yeah.
this is a big deal for
Wink,
later.
wink, the wink,
Yeah.
wink, nudge, nudge type thing. Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
I enjoy that. I think it's a much better way of them kind of, laying breadcrumbs out for us to kind of theorize and think about and talk
Mhm.
about, and then kind of hopefully having payoffs in bigger things. But yeah, I'm wondering here's the thing I'm wondering. So we know that Gravik has already used the machine, or the machine's already been used on Gravik.
Right.
I feel like he would have done way more than just shooting Gaia once if he had known that she had used the machine. So
Right.
I mean, I think the fact that she reverted back means that the bullet was a fatal shot. But if she had happened to use the machine in secret, like if we get a flashback that, she has used the machine in secret type of thing, then we could have her, all of a sudden wake up. That could have been the thing. Like we could literally, the first scene of the next episode could just be her
With
with her
the
eyes.
Shem is kicking in.
Yeah, with her eyes popping open and her like doing that type of thing. And that would be a really cool reveal. But that would mean that she somehow used the machine without him knowing, type of thing. So
Right.
that's very interesting because I don't know when she would
Exactly.
have like.
It had to be a flashback scene, of course. They had to be
Right.
like, okay, here's something you missed while these guys are doing this. She happened to use the machine somehow. Yeah, it's
Exactly.
gonna be. That's why I feel like someone's gonna like throw her in the machine with her like already dead, and to see if that will work somehow. Like I don't know how they're gonna get around this. But again, it's just I'm very intrigued to see how they're gonna kind of weave their way through this maze. Right.
Right. I mean, the only other thought I had was maybe that was a decoy. Like maybe that wasn't the real Gaia, because we can see that, the scrolls can shapeshift into, multiple different people. It's not like
Right.
I'm locking on this person type of thing. So I don't know if maybe we're gonna like find out that was just a decoy and she went the opposite, like a different way, or you know what I mean? Like, and then that would explain like, she's still here and stuff like that. So I mean, there are I guess two different roads they could go with that to still have her character, exist, be alive, type of thing.
Right.
The only other thing, like I didn't really have a prediction. I think like you said, we had two cliffhangers in this episode, and I'm very interested to see, how quickly we get the payoff in episode 4. But the only thing I was really left with thinking when the episode ended, besides obviously the two, cliffhangers, was Talos and Fury just instantly start talking. There are multiple scenes where they just instantly like walk in and start talking freely to someone who is a scroll, number one, then they know that for a fact. So like I'm talking about two scenes I can think of and they're both Fury doing it, is there was a flashback where he goes into a diner and starts talking to which in present day is his wife.
Right.
And he was instantly started talking to her. And he goes, who's like disguise are you right now, type of thing. And she goes, oh, don't worry about it, type of thing. Like that could have been anybody, number one. But number two, he walks into the bar and he hasn't seen Talos for at least a day. A lot of events have happened and stuff like that. He walks into a bar and he just immediately starts talking to him and saying he needs his help and all this stuff and starts confiding in what's going on immediately. That could have been anybody. Like, you know what I mean? Like that could have been any scroll. Like, I just like he says he calls him Fury later, and we do get the reinforcement that was the real Talos and Nick Fury type of thing, but that was daytime and that was nighttime by the time we kind of get the reveal that Fury knows it was Talos because he called him Fury. He goes, nobody ever calls me Nick, type of thing. Like, you know what I mean? So like, I would be way more like kind of like just. I don't know for sure if I'm talking to somebody. Like even on the phone, like he calls the English lady who.
Oh, Sonia.
Yeah, Sonia. sorry, her name went completely out of my head. Fury just calls her, but that could have been a scroll. That could have been anybody type of thing, just impersonating a voice. Because we see Talos can just import. It doesn't even have to go into full character. Can just change his vocal cords type of thing.
Yeah.
So like the amount of confidence that Fury has, I would not have that level of confidence in who I was talking to type of thing.
True. But
So-
also, it's probably important to really it's that we don't want to confuse the confidence that he has talking to his people as trust too, because he has talked about. There's a great scene in The Winter Soldier where he talks about his granddad going on working on elevators, and he had a bag with crumpled up ones and a loaded 22 mag, because he loved people but he never trusted them. So I feel like Fury is somebody who's just never trusted people ever, but he's always looking for ways he can leverage them. So like again, he's got his little ways that he knows when people are like lying to him. So I feel like he's trying to keep his skills real close to the vest and all that. And every now and then he starts to you can see little bits where it's slipping, right? And I think that's kind of the interesting character arc for him, is kind of seeing those instincts starting to kind of those little defenses of his starting to lower a little bit, and it's starting to cost him personally.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I am all for it. I cannot wait until next week's episode. I'm hoping we get some payoffs from those 2 cliffhanger scenes. Yeah, I'm just excited. I'm excited to dive into the next episode type of thing. As soon as this one finishes, like I'm ready to go to the next one. Type of thing. But anyway, as we always say, that's what we think. Let us know in the comments below. What did you think of episode 3? And what do you think? Like, is this the end for Gaia? And who was on the other end of that phone? I mean, we get, even with closed captioning, we don't get any hints or clues to who was on the other end of the phone line. And as always, don't forget, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to hear about all of our latest audio and video podcast releases. Bye, everybody!
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.